Welcome again, our listeners and viewers, to the podcast, Breaking Free Together. We're here this week talking about the inner child. Today, we're diving into healing your past by connecting with your inner child. So that's the purpose of this episode. When people think about their inner child, often it's a word that's talked about quite a lot, isn't it, Kazi? People are, oh, I'm working on my inner child. But sometimes people don't explain what they mean. So when we talk about our inner child, this is the part of us when you think about our time growing up, all our experiences. 0 to 6 is the time where we hold on to everything we've experienced. We don't have the capacity to decide whether it's right or wrong. So it's just accepted for us. We that's what we think is right, and then after 6 years of age, off we go. But if we have been raised by narcissistic parents, we're going to be holding on to a lot of things that other people have not experienced. So we've got hold of feelings of unworthiness, feelings of fear or shame or guilt, and we carry those through our life. Because I've said this to many of my clients. Your 7-year-old is still with you. Your 9-year-old is still with you. Your 12-year-old is still with you. They haven't gone anywhere. They haven't, you haven't left them there. They're not back in space somewhere. They're with you. They are with you on the journey. Unfortunately, if we haven't worked on our inner child, we're then bringing all their experiences with us and dealing with them as triggers in our everyday life.
Yeah. The thing I carry from my inner child is that I'm worthy of unconditional love. So, and I think it's a surprise to me. I was talking to my partner about this, but he asked me something or what I wanted to do, or did I want this? And he said, "Oh, you'll say no to anything. No, you don't want anything. No, you don't. You don't need anything. You don't want anything. You don't." And I'm like, "Well, I just don't want to be a bother." And he said to me, "Well, why do you think it's a bother? Why do you think it's a bother for me to do something for you? I love you." And it always comes as a surprise to me. Not as a surprise to me, but it's like,
you struggle because it's not something you've experienced before. So it's like an alien experience for you.
Like I struggle to understand that someone could love me unconditionally and do things for me because they love me and they want to, without any hope for anything in reprisal or return, or because I'm good, or because I deserve it. They do it because they love me. And I think more than anything else, and I think I've only just realised that recently, to be honest with you. I think I thought the biggest thing I carried with me was shame, and that is still there. But just talking about our inner child more than anything is that I think that's what I have carried most with me, is that someone can just love me without me needing to be a really, really good girl and really, really behave myself, and really that I'm good enough as I am to be loved.
That's the part of you that remembers how you were treated and how you felt and what you believed about yourself and the environment around you. So you didn't experience that. We didn't experience that.
No.
We didn't experience being loved just for being us.
Yeah, just for existing, which that is what you should be loved. Do you know what I mean?
Isn't
just for existing,
especially from a parent.
Yes.
Their job is to love you unconditionally. The impact then from being a child of a narcissistic parent, the emotional wounds, as we've said, feeling unworthy of love, internalized criticism or perfectionism, fear of expressing emotions, again, something we were never able to do. And then this is the part you've just mentioned, difficulty trusting others or forming healthy relationships. Because what you've just described is what happens in a healthy relationship. What do you think then, if we think about the signs of an unhealed inner child, what kind of hits you,
Well, probably because I say it in myself as well. So it's a double thing. I say it myself and I say it from others. And you will smile because as soon as I say this, it's a constant over apologizing for everything. The sorry. I'm not saying everyone that over says sorry. Some people do that and they haven't been brought up with a narcissistic parent. But the sorry is felt to my core, and you see that feeling like you are to blame for everything that goes wrong. Do you know what I mean? The train could have broke down that you went on, had nothing to do with you. You weren't driving, but you're sorry that it broke down because somehow it's your fault. And the avoiding confrontation. We were talking about this just before, weren't we? And I suppose people have called it, oh, stop being a doormat or being walked all over. But that it isn't that simple. When you're brought up by a narcissistic parent, you learn how to keep yourself safe. So all of these unhealed inner child things are just strategies that you've used or you've learned to use as a child that kept you safe. And it was safe to not be confrontational with your parent. It was safe to constantly be the apologetic one with your parent. So I think that those two. And I think the other one, and I think I only realised that I did this recently, well, in the last couple of years, is the overreaction to criticism. We mentioned this in another podcast, that there can be healthy and constructive criticism, and that's okay. But when you've been constantly criticised and belittled for everything, and not in a constructive way, in a tear down, destroy, humiliating way, then I think you can overreact to when you hear people or you speak to people or you listen to them overreact to a tiny bit of criticism. You think, oh, they've got an ego, haven't they? Maybe that's not the case, and maybe think about the fact that it may be that if their inner child is unhealed, then they react to that criticism as a child would, and they overreact to that because it feels like you are a 5-year-old child again, and your dad or whoever, but in our case, your dad is constantly criticizing you for every single thing that you've done.
I would definitely agree with that one.
Yeah.
I still struggle with that one. In a healthy relationship, again, we'll go back to in a healthy relationship, someone mentioning something to you said from a place of love or said just maybe as a side comment to anybody else would garner a reaction of, oh, right, okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Instead of the overreaction. Let's say, for example, someone washes the dishes and perhaps the glasses aren't as clean as they could be, and you're like, maybe as a joke, say, bloody hell, have we run out of washing up liquid? The normal reaction to that would be to laugh and go, ha, 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 all right, they're not clean or whatever.
Yeah.
The overreaction to that is, what's wrong with them? I use washing up liquid. And it escalates inside. And it's a trigger that even if it's said as a joke, the reaction is unnatural.
Yes.
And
Really
doesn't
unnatural.
fit.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit,
No. Yeah.
And I would agree. I've had to work a lot on myself with that, particularly because we could never do anything right, no matter whether we did it of our own accord. It wasn't good enough. If we didn't do it of our own accord, we were too stupid not to figure it out for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then the constant criticisms, and it was always expected.
Yeah.
You were nearly on guard all of the time.
Yeah.
Because you knew something was coming.
Yeah, we had a lot of visitors at our house. Our house was like an open house, wasn't it? My dad and mum's policy was, come and knock on the door, and if we're there, you come in, have a cup of tea, blah, blah, blah. So there was always lots of visitors. And we were usually the ones making the cups of tea and bringing in and out the biscuits and the sandwiches. And I remember generally it was either that the tea wasn't made right. One that sticks in my head is one of us bringing the sandwich into dad, and I don't think we put it on a plate, because when there was no people there, he would have it wrapped up in a bit of kitchen towel to save bothering with plates. And we brought it in like that. And he went mad because, of course, he's in front of other people now. So he wants to be seen as being proper and posh. And he was like, have we not got any clean plates in this house? And kind of immediately criticised you for bringing it in without plates, even though he never really had it with a plate when other people weren't there. Or the tea, it wasn't full enough, or it was too full and we were spilling it, or we hadn't put the biscuits out right, or there was always something that we criticised you for. Your skirt was too short, or your top was too tight, or those clothes didn't look right, or you needed to brush your hair, or I remember actually, this is actually an embarrassing one to say, but when I think of criticism, it goes hand in hand with humiliation. I remember the way your knickers get stuck up your bum. And I remember pulling my knickers out of my bum once, and we were outside and we were walking down the street. And my dad had a right go at me, and he was like, get your finger out, this kind of thing. Oh, you're not a right state. And so even little stuff like that. And if I said that, I would never say that to my children now. Your pants are stuck up your bum and you're trying your best to get them out. And even as a child, they don't even think, do they? They just do it. It's uncomfortable. Why would you humiliate them and criticize them like that? But that was Dad. Something wasn't done. A job wasn't done well enough. Or you mentioned a couple of podcasts ago about us having to clean our room. There was always something that wasn't right. Or we hadn't cleaned the toilet or the bathroom right once. I remember them hauling us all in the toilet. Someone hadn't flushed the loo right. Do you remember? And we all were having a family gathering in the top bathroom. Do you remember that? Yeah. Do you remember that? And someone hadn't flushed away a wee, I think.
Oh,
And
for
it
the
was
love
like
of
a
God.
big family gathering in the bathroom. And he was like, when I sit down on the toilet, I don't want to have. Which, yes, okay, we all teach our children to flush the toilet, but it was the constant. That was everything. Your hair wasn't right, or you hadn't cleaned something right. You didn't speak right. You said the wrong word. We used to get told off for speaking in the accent that we grew up in a town with that accent. You speak in that accent, and it was like, don't say stairs, and you're not brushing your hair. You're brushing your hair, and do you know what I mean? We couldn't just be ourselves, could we?
Overacting to criticism, avoiding confrontation, or over apologizing, seeking external validation.
That's another one, yeah. Big one.
We are very, very, is it all right? Does it taste all right? Does it look all right? Do I look all right? Is your tea all right? And then feeling disconnected from joy or playfulness. No, in all fairness, I don't know whether about you. I can't relate to that. I know that other people might be
Yeah.
able to relate to that. It's not a sign that I can relate to. And perhaps the reason being that I've made overt effort to be different with my children.
Yeah.
If anyone knows me and my children tell their friends that their mother's a nutcase, because I prefer to be known as fun-loving nutcase than power-hungry, fear-inspiring ogre. And I think it's really important to keep hold of that inner child, that part of you that has fun and laughs and is silly and goes and splashes and puddles and acts like a 5-year-old, even though you're 50 flaming one. And I think that's really important. I really do.
I have to say, I'm proud of us for this. And maybe it helped having each other because, I mean, you were punished for laughing too much. Well, you were punished quite often for laughing because you laughed loudly and wildly, and he never liked it because it was something he wasn't in control of. And for all the times we were told off for being noisy and for being children, most of the time, if that was one person on their own or one child on their own, or they might have had that knocked out of them. Not knocked out of them, but I don't mean physically knocked out of them, but I don't think that's something that ever happened with us. And I don't know if it's because we were away from Dad enough or out of Dad's sight enough together that we still had a laugh and a joy but I don't think we ever let that bit of us. I don't think we ever allowed him to take that bit of us away. I think we still continued on no matter how much we got told off for it, didn't we?
Adding to that is our fantasy world as children was our escape.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
I think we needed to find somewhere to be that was not where we were.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's why we're able to still have that playfulness, because we continued that through our childhood. Our safe space wasn't home.
No.
It was in the little worlds that we created when we were at home, whether that be in the garden or clambering the banana tree, if you remember, in the corner of the garden. We used to go up and sit in that tree so that we couldn't be found.
Yeah.
That was one of my hiding places, especially during the summer when the leaves were really thick on it and you couldn't see in it because it was a huge tree. I loved that tree.
We did that, and we played upstairs a lot, didn't we? We
did.
Janet's and Janine's upstairs a lot. Do you remember?
Yeah, Janet's and Jean's. And then what else did we do? We had the shop.
We had the shop.
What was it with and the office.
Yeah.
And then we had our Barbies and our Cindy's. It was Cindy's, not Barbies. We couldn't afford Barbies.
And
we got Cindy's
when Dad was still at work and so hadn't started work on the garden, so our garden was a bit of a It was a bit of a
Jungle.
mess. Well, I was going to say that Cindy would go to the jungle, and then
Yeah.
we'd go out in the summer and play in the long grass,
Yeah.
and we'd be like, Cindy would be living in the jungle or going on safari or something like
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah.
remember? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When the grass was long, we'd flatten a circle it out in the middle of the garden, so the rest of the long grass
Yeah.
was around us. Again, like a
Hey,
little safe space.
yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy the crap we did just to survive.
yeah.
Yeah,
We're proud of
okay.
us for that. And it's made, like you said, that we've still been able to play and discover joy with our own children. And even
Yeah.
now, I'm at my
Even
stupidest.
without my children, I don't need my children.
Well, I was going to say, I'm at my, not my stupidest, that makes sense. I'm at my silliest when I'm with the
Yeah,
kids or I'm with you. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? When we come over and visit you and we're at yours, do you know, I really let go.
yeah.
It's like that safeness again.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that would help is to find that child, find that inner child, that one that played.
Yeah,
And even if they didn't play, you can now tell them that they're allowed to. They're
yeah,
allowed to play. Find if you were not allowed to play, you can play. I
yeah,
give you permission. Give your inner child permission to come out and play, whether that's dancing around the kitchen to some music that you would have loved as a child, or just being silly. I'll tell you a really daft experience that turned into a disaster, but ended up turning to be all right. Trevor and I went up to the North Coast for our anniversary, and we went to visit one of the castles up there, and there was a big long hill coming down to the car park, and I had like a hoodie on with a kind of a loose pocket. So, I mean, he's used to my daftness and now he's as daft as me, which is great. I've brought him down to my level. And I saw the hill and I was like, oh, this is a golden opportunity. And I started running down the hill going, the hills are alive with the sound of music. And I'm bouncing down the hill. There are people kind of looking over, some of them laughing, some of them thinking, this woman is clearly escaped from an asylum. And then we got down to the car only to realize I don't have my phone
oh,
anymore. And
oh,
I'm like, oh my God. And this like hill is huge. And I can't remember exactly where I was running down, but it all worked out in the end. The staff there were absolutely lovely. I told them I'd lost my phone. Trevor and I went to walk for another 40 minutes trying to find it, couldn't find it. But these eagle-eyed girls found it and rung us up and said, we found your phone. So it all worked out in the end. But yes, that's kind of the strange thing I do. And I don't care. And I don't care that people look at me. I just
yeah,
don't care. I'm like, I'm never going to see you again.
that's
And maybe they'll remember me, but I won't remember you. So it's okay.
it.
But that day we went to the castle and that
Not a mad
nutcase was
woman.
bouncing round, bouncing down the hill, singing at the top of her voice. Do you have a story that has left an emotional scar that you have either worked on or are working on, or still struggle with?
Still to this day, I think it's the worst thing that I think ever happened in my childhood, along all the other crappy mess. This was the worst thing. And it was the day that we had gone upstairs and not heard mum shouting at us. And dad called us back down. And because we were such bad children, he pretended, we didn't know he was pretended to phone the nearest children's home, and we were going to get packed off because we didn't deserve to have such a lovely mum because we were so vile. We were going to get packed off on that Monday. I think this was the Friday afternoon after
Yeah.
school. They were going to come and pick us up that Monday, and we were terrified all weekend. I remember with you arranging an escape plan. We'd said we would maybe pack our bags, and then as we were walking out to the car, we'd drop our bags and run because we didn't want to be taken away. Mum said to us, and she knew that he or wasn't doing it, obviously. She knew it was fake. But she was saying to us, maybe if you're really, really nice to your dad all weekend, he won't let them take you and he'll change it and all this, that, and the other. And I think that did happen then. Either that happened, somehow it came out that it wasn't real, he said at the end of the weekend. But we basically kissed his arse all weekend while he ignored us. He stonewalled us. He cold shouldered us all weekend. He didn't speak to us. Bearing in mind we were about either 7 and 9 or 8 and 10 or something like that. And I think the emotional scar that caused was abandonment issues. So I now struggle. Well, a mix of abandonment issues and the punishment always being worse than the crime. So I'm 7 years into my relationship now, and my partner will tell you this, that within the first 2 years, every time we had like a little disagreement, or I thought he wasn't happy with something or whatever, I thought that was it. He was going to finish the relationship. Anytime that he didn't sound remotely happy, I would be convinced that he was cross with me for something, or he was upset with me for something. And I remember him asking me, saying to me, "Why do you think I'm always cross with you?" But it was this. I mean, this was, I mean, obviously lots of other stuff on top of that main experience, but that's the experience that comes to mind. And I think that also ties in, it ties in with the people pleasing. I think everything that I have ties into, I can tie it in one or the other to that experience. The people pleasing, the constantly apologizing, feeling like it's my fault, feeling like a tiny thing that I do wrong is going to bring catastrophic consequences. I've never told him this, and it's fine now. But again, in the first 2 years of our relationship, I remember telling you this, Pamela, we did a lot of our other stuff through text and chatting, and especially during COVID, we weren't living together, so we had to be two separate kind of households. And when he used to say goodnight to me, if he signed offline before I managed to say goodnight back, I felt so abandoned. How stupid is that? Do you know what I mean? I was like, he didn't stop and wait to see my goodbye. He just said goodbye. And I know that sounds really silly, but it just felt like really abandoned. If he was the last person to say something or whatever, or he would say goodnight before I was like ready to go to sleep or whatever, which is all insane. It's all absolutely insane. That's kind of to me, that's left massive emotional scars for me, and it's affected my relationships. And they're not being worthy of love. That would just be thrown out. What about yourself?
My emotional wound relates to not being heard. We were never heard as children.
No.
Our thoughts, our emotions, or opinions didn't matter, or we were dismissed. So even now, I struggle with that. I don't really do small talk. So when I do speak, it's usually something that is important to me. You know this.
Yeah.
I don't do the
Talk
whole
about the weather and
yeah, I'm like, let me. I don't. I like to be around people who can change me as a person, or I can learn from, or I like deep, meaningful conversations. But if I think that people aren't listening to what I'm saying, I'll just stop talking.
yeah.
If I don't think that people are actually really paying attention, I'll just stop talking, because it just reminds me of not being heard as a child. And I don't mean, I don't mean the average Joe in the street. You're stood in the supermarket and someone says, "Oh, well, it's been bad weather today." I'm talking about the people that mean something to me, whether it be my husband or my children or you or my family or my close friends. Not that I have many, but I want to be heard, which might sound a little bit selfish, I suppose,
No.
but it's almost like a necessity for me, because we weren't.
No.
So I struggle with that. I mean, it was a long time ago, I went to couple counseling with my partner, and she wasn't the best therapist in the world, but she deduced, which was an eye opener for me, because I hadn't figured it out. This was before I trained as a therapist. I hadn't figured it out. And she deduced that my partner would talk and talk and talk and not care who listened. Whereas I would remain silent unless I knew I was being really heard,
Yeah.
which made for terrible communication between the two of us, because one person would waffle on and I would just sit there and say nothing. And then they'd say, "You never talk." And I'm like, I never talk because I'm not being heard. You're not listening to me. To work on our inner child, we do have to acknowledge the pain.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't want to look at it. Sometimes it's not very comfortable. But if we don't confront the pain we've experienced, we'll never change. And so
No.
we're stuck in those terrible symptoms that are going to affect us for the rest of our life. As difficult as the memories are, that's the only way we're going to begin to heal. I mean, we've talked about a few memories, and I know it's kind of sometimes when we talk about this stuff, it affects both of us when we think back. Once we're able to identify these wounds, we can start to heal them.
That's it. You need to make that connection, don't you? You need to make, otherwise you don't really understand. You can maybe think, well, why do I do this all the time? I need to change it. But until you look back and see where that source, because this talk of emotional wounding of wounding in our childhood, you have to go back to that source, because we talk about it in the child work, healing on in a child, and we've said this a few times, I always think of it as reparenting yourself, because you're going back to that child, like our age. So we were like 6, 7 when that whole thing happened about a children's home, and we were getting sent off to a children's home. And I have to go back to that little girl, and I have to tell her that it's okay, that she wasn't a bad girl, that she wasn't a bad child, and that she's loved for who she is, and she doesn't need to grovel to somebody that ignores her for days on end just to be accepted for being a child, and that it's okay, and that she's safe, and that I love her for who she is. And you hear people say this, and you're like, oh, but you do need to say those things to yourself, and you do need to tell all of the ways that you weren't kept safe and protected and treated right as a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, or 8-year-old. You have to go back to that time, and you have to be the parent, the loving, caring, healing parent to that part of you, to 8-year-old you. And you have to tell them that you've got them, and you'll never let somebody hurt them like that again, and that they're safe. And that can be hard and emotional to do, but it's the only way that you are then going to make a difference to all of your wounds that you have now that keep repeating themselves.
Because when we think about wounds, by ignoring, or we can just say, oh, well, it's okay, it doesn't matter. When you think about how deep these wounds are, by ignoring them, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to get any better. You're going to suffer. You're going to suffer. So now we've kind of, flogged that and kind of terrified everyone that they have to look into their past. And let's lift it a little bit by talking about the healing practices that will actually help us. There is, at the end of this video, if you stay the end, there's the guided meditation. One of the healing practices is guided meditation or a visualization. If we can take our inner child through a visualization whilst we do a guided meditation, we're able then to reach that child, because our conscious mind is shut down and our unconscious mind is opened up. In the visualization, you can picture yourself as a child. Imagine sitting next to them and asking them what they need. Listen to their feelings without judgment, and offer them love and reassurance. The more often we do it, the stronger our feeling of, I'm enough.
Yeah.
I feel safe.
Consistency, isn't it?
Consistency.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
Well, I know this is one that you always advocate for, and that's journaling, because, like you said, it's hard. It's, you're whatever age you are now, and especially if your childhood's been one of pain, it can be hard to go back there. It can be hard to try and reconnect with how we felt as children. And so we can use journaling in the same way that you've just said about the meditation. You've got the same objective in mind. We're trying to connect with your inner child. So writing things down, like writing down maybe things that you would have loved to have heard as a child and that you never did, that maybe that you were enough, or that you were loved, or that you were beautiful, or that you had a lovely voice, or do you know what I mean? Any of those things that you didn't hear that as a child you loved to have heard, and sit and take the time to think about it and write it down. Maybe things that scared you as a child, things that you were frightened of, writing them down. And sometimes that takes the power away, just getting it down in black and white and seeing it. And then how would you respond to a child that was scared of those things now? How did you want to be responded to as a child? Did you want a hug? What words would you have loved to have heard? And then also, what we were talking before about joy, weren't we, about thinking about joyful times, because we had joyful times in our childhood, like we were saying before, the play, and we went on holidays, and like we've said, that there were times Dad wasn't all bad, that when he wasn't at work and when it suited him, he could be quite fun and joyful himself, couldn't he? And Mum. So think about those times as well, and then think about how you can try and connect with that joy, so that you can have that joyful. It just makes it easy if you keep practicing connecting with that joy. Then you can bring that into your life now, finding it easier to connect with joy. If that's one of the issues, or one of the things that you have, that you struggle to connect with joy and playfulness, and then it'll make it easier for you to do now in your life.
I think journaling is so underrated. I really do. I think it's one of the best techniques. I'm saying that because it's worked well for me. Different things work for different people. So another technique that can be utilized is what you spoke about earlier, reparenting.
Well, just what we said before. So basically, your inner voice, how you talk to yourself, especially if you've grown up with a narcissistic parent, can be very, very, very critical,
Yeah.
demeaning, humiliating. And I don't know about most other people, but I'm like this. That sits in the back of my head, and that talks to me all the time. That voice that tells me I'm stupid and why can't I get anything right, etc., etc. So to reparenting yourself is basically changing that voice so that it's like a loving parent to you. So be kind to yourself when you make a mistake. Praise yourself when you do something good. Do you know, even if you think it's just something little or small, say to yourself, oh, that's fantastic that you managed to get through that, or you managed to say that, or you stood up for yourself, and giving yourself permission to fulfill your needs. So if you need to sit down for 10 minutes because you're tired, or you want to rest, or you want a nice relaxing bath. We grew up in a childhood where you weren't allowed to have any downtime. If dad caught you doing nothing, you were in trouble. There's always something to do. You couldn't sit down and just do nothing, because that was seen as being idle. So give yourself permission to do that. Give yourself permission to laugh wildly. Give yourself permission to play. And if you struggle with that, which I have, I find, and this only, I suppose, works if you're a parent, but I find thinking about what I would say to my children if they did well. My son recently, my youngest, got on the school football team. I was thrilled for him and absolutely rejoiced with him and jumped around with him and said I was probably acted more joyful than he did, because he's a 13-year-old lad who was just like, yeah, all right, but I was like, what? Cheerlead yourself the way you would cheerlead your own children. Be as kind to yourself as you are to your children, and be as playful with yourself as you would be with your children. And that's reparenting yourself.
And that follows on then into the next point, which would be therapeutic play.
Yeah.
Which is what we talked about before. Go out there and do something that ignites you with joy, but that is fun. Painting, dancing, splashing in puddles, running down a hill and singing the sound of music at the top of your voice in front of other people and not caring less. Build sandcastle, go on the swings at the park. Reconnect with your inner child by doing things. And this should go for everybody, not just people who have suffered narcissistic abuse. I truly believe that as we get older, if we allow the seriousness is a disease. It's just a disease. It's like, why are you so serious? I'm starting with a joker. Why so serious? Put a smile on your face, not like that. But yeah, I think too serious, being serious all the time and everything having to be serious, that's not what our life is supposed to be like. We're supposed to be able to laugh and have joy and be happy and be silly and allow yourself to be silly. There's no one there to criticize you now. Be who you would want to have been when you were 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, and continue to be that person. You and your inner child are one person. Take her or him off for a skip or a run or a jump or a swing or all of the above.
Yeah.
My directive to you all. So let's think of self-compassion, because I think this is a key element in connecting with our inner child. When we've discussed all the symptoms of a child having suffered from narcissistic abuse, and the very fact that we didn't get that compassion as children is why it's so important to give ourselves the self-compassion now.
Yeah.
We talked about self-criticism earlier. You just mentioned it there, where you think of that little voice in the back of your head that tells you that you're stupid and that you're an idiot and that you're a moron and all those awful things that it says to you.
Yeah.
Challenge that voice.
Yeah.
Challenge it. And say, is this true?
Yeah.
Am I really a moron? Am I really a moron? Challenge it. Because that voice isn't your voice, is it?
No. Dad's
It's
voice.
not your voice. Yeah.
No.
But that belief that you're whatever you say you are has been placed there by somebody else.
Yeah.
Somebody else with a lack of self-esteem, somebody else with the self-esteem of a gnat's wing, because that's the basis of a narcissist
Yeah.
is their utter
Yeah.
dislike of their own selves.
Yeah.
So when that voice says you're not good enough, respond with, I am enough.
Yeah.
I am enough. Just like you said earlier with your partner when they said, I love you. I love you for who you are.
Yeah.
But you need to say that to yourself.
Yeah, you do. You do. I think that's the one thing that we don't, well, I'm using the we collectively, children of narcissists, that we don't do enough is tell ourselves that we love ourselves, which sounds like really silly. Like you can feel really silly saying that, but that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to really truly love yourself. And I think this we've touched on this before, but this affirmations then goes in hand with this. If you're trying to change that inner voice, daily affirmations really, really helps, because you have, for all of your life, like Pamela said, to the first 6 years of your life, you're like a sponge. You've got no ideas of your own. You haven't even really got a sense of self. That kind of comes later in childhood. And so you're a sponge and you soak up what your parents or the people around you for the first 5 years of your life tells you. So by the time you've hit 5, if you're the child of a narcissist, it's already deeply embedded in you that you're not good enough. And so then stick on top of that, I'm 49, so stick on top of that another 44 years of telling yourself how rubbish you are. That's not going to change easily or quickly. So this whole daily affirmation, you've probably heard people talk about daily affirmations, where you write something down like, I am enough, or I am worthy of love, I am worthy of respect, and say them out loud. Do it somewhere quiet if you don't want anyone to hear you, but say them to yourself in a mirror out loud, where you're looking at yourself. I avoid mirrors like the plague. I absolutely do. I don't have one. There's one in the living room at the kids' height, but the only one is a little round one in the bathroom. And I'll use a compact mirror to do my makeup. But other than that, I don't look in mirrors. I don't like them. But when I'm in the bathroom, that's when I say my affirmations to myself in the little round mirror in the bathroom. And it does, you feel a bit daft the first couple of times, but actually, the more you do it, the more you actually really start looking at yourself and hearing every single word that you say, and another one, just going on the reparenting one, is telling yourself that you're safe and you're going to protect yourself and that you're not going to let anything hurt you again, and things like that will help you feel safe enough to change that voice that keeps going on and on in your head as well.
Yeah, I know you're big into your affirmations, and you've been doing them for a while now.
I have, yeah. Yeah, I have been doing them for a while because, well, I think I'd said to you, was it just as we were starting this podcast, I think I
It was,
started them.
yeah. And
So I've been
what are
doing
your benefits to sell
them.
it a little bit more?
Yeah, I think I definitely, that inner voice, it definitely doesn't take me as long to correct myself now. It's not as critical of me as it was. And I'm able to, so before, my inner voice would have sort of dropped a fork on the floor. I mean, even something that simple. If I dropped the fork on the floor or something on the floor, my old inner voice would have been like, oh, you absolute idiot. You stupid cow, you're so clumsy. And it would have been this absolute barrage of criticism for dropping a fork on the floor. And then I started the affirmations and I would still say it, but then maybe afterwards I would say, you shouldn't have said that to yourself, etc., etc. Whereas now I'm actually starting to stop that barrage coming in the first place. I've not gotten to the point where the barrage isn't coming and something really nice gets said, but I'm able to stop the barrage. I'm able to stop myself before I start saying it. Don't always replace it with something kind, but I just don't stop myself from that barrage of saying you idiot. And so that it is that they are really helping, and it's helping me build up confidence as well, because I'm going through a career change at the moment, and that's massively knocked my confidence because I feel like I'm not capable of doing the career that I need to do. For instance, doing the affirmations, that has helped me to gain more confidence, and I'm sharing the little wins. So I had a little win the other day I was telling you about before, and probably to somebody else that might seem quite small. I've not got a job or anything, but it might seem quite small. But to me, I really shared myself about that. I felt good about myself. I felt good about myself for being able to do something good that no one needed to change. Nothing needed changing on it. I've done a really good job at the beginning. To start off with, my first draft, I'd done a really good job, and before I would have maybe not thought that about myself. I would have thought, oh, I got lucky there, or but I was able to feel like good in myself, feel a little bit, because you can feel quite that you're being a bit egotistical if you're not used to saying to yourself, oh, well done. You feel like you're being a bit arrogant. You feel like but you're not. You're just saying to yourself that was a job well done for doing it. And I've been able to say that to myself a lot more since starting the affirmations than I did before.
That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Well done. Like, seriously, that is amazing. Because I know how hard you are on yourself.
Yeah.
So that just proves to you how much of an impact the affirmations are having on you.
Yeah.
Well done. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Good job. Well, we're going to bring this podcast to a close now, and we're grateful that you joined us today. We're hoping that you are able to take on something in this podcast, a small gem to take away that will be beneficial for you to connect to your inner child. Your inner child has been waiting for you. She or he is sitting there just waiting for you to connect. So take one small step to nurture that part of yourself this week. Healing, we know, is a journey. That's a catchphrase. Healing is a journey, but it's true, isn't it? But every step forward is worth it, and just one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. And please do, if you have healing stories to share with us, please leave them in the comments, because we'd love to hear from you. And also, please let us know if there's part of this podcast that has helped you and that it's something that's encouraged you to implement going forward, so you can be able to connect with your inner child, to be able to make your life better, to build yourself to be the whole unconditionally lovable person that you
are
deserve to be. Yeah, absolutely, you are. But you might not think you are yet, but we'll get you there sooner or later. We'll get you there. If you have liked this video, please give us a like and a wee thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please feel free to do so. We'd love to reach as many people as possible with our podcast, and hoping that whatever we can offer is of help to anyone. So for those of you who are going to stay on, there'll be a meditation coming up shortly. But for now, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Find a quiet and comfortable place where you can relax without distractions. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. Let go of any tension in your body as you prepare to journey inward. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a moment and slowly exhale. With each breath, feel yourself relaxing into the present moment. Notice the weight of your body against the surface you're resting on. Allow your shoulders to soften, your jaw to relax, and your hands to rest gently. Breathe in. And as you exhale, imagine a soft golden light surrounding you, bringing warmth and comfort. Now picture yourself walking down a sandy beach. The sand is soft beneath your feet. The air is fresh. The sun is warm. You feel completely safe. As you continue walking, you see a small figure sitting ahead. Your inner child. This is the younger version of you, waiting to be seen, waiting to be heard, waiting to be loved. Notice how they look. What expression is on their face? How old do they seem to be? Are they joyful? Are they shy? Or are they perhaps carrying sadness? As you approach, lower yourself down and sit beside them. Take a moment to connect. Ask your inner child, what do you need from me right now? Is there something you want me to know? Be open to any response, whether it's words or emotions or just a feeling. If your inner child is sad, offer them comfort. If they are playful, smile and engage with them. Let them know they are loved. Know they are seen. They are never alone. Give them a warm hug. Hold their hand. Feel the bond between you strengthening. Gently tell your inner child, I am here for you. You are loved just as you are. You are safe with me. Let them know that no matter what has happened in the past, You are here now to nurture and protect them. Imagine the golden light surrounding both of you, filling your heart with warmth. Feel the love and peace flowing between you as you integrate this connection into your being. When your inner child is ready, give them one last reassuring embrace. You will always be there, that you are here now to protect them. They are safe. Now, slowly bring your awareness back to your body. Your toes, the surface beneath you. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Gently bring yourself back to the present moment. When you're ready, open your eyes. Sit in stillness for a moment. Embrace the peace and connection you've created. You are whole. You are loved. Your inner child is always with you.